WorldAware's annual global forecast report looks at various regions around the world, as well as categories including health, environment, terrorism, kidnapping, and transportation. The 2019 report is compiled by expert intelligence analysts across the globe. I'm Sean Wolinsky, Senior Environment Intelligence Analyst at WorldAware. I'll be sharing highlights from the environmental section of the 2019 global forecast. Wildfire seasons depend on several factors, including local weather patterns and longer-term regional climate trends. With that said, there's an observable increase in wildfire activity during summer and fall months, which often correlates with periods of drought. Dry and highly flammable vegetation, high temperatures, low humidity, and strong winds are also typical during these months, creating ideal conditions for rapid fire growth. As urban sprawl and population growth pushes people into living in more fire-prone areas, the likelihood and frequency of infrastructure losses associated with wildfires will likely increase. The immediate impact of wildfires can be life-threatening. Wildfire-derived hazards can have just as deadly and even longer-lasting consequences than the initial fire itself. Smoke produced by burning vegetation poses health concerns for both the immediate area as well as regions downwind of wildfire complexes. I'll talk about the health effects associated with the 2018 Canada wildfires in just a bit. The loss of vegetation also increases the threat of dangerous flash flooding and mud flows, which can be threatening to nearby areas for years following a major blaze. The Thomas Fire and resultant mudslides in Montecito, California in 2018 is a great example of this. Smoke from wildfires in British Columbia, Canada had widespread health and transportation impacts in 2018. The British Columbia Fire Service estimates that fires burned roughly 3.3 million acres of land in 2018. Officials assert that the 2018 wildfire season was one of the province's worst, with at least 2,094 unique fires recorded since the beginning of the year. Although hundreds of people in British Columbia were directly affected by these fires, either through fire-related damage and disruptions or by way of evacuations and firefighting operations, the resultant smoke impacted thousands more within and outside of the province's boundaries. Satellite imagery taken during the peak of the British Columbia wildfires in August showed smoke moving across the province into Alberta and Saskatchewan. Poor visibility from the resultant smoke triggered intermittent flight disruptions in the wider region, as well as activation of air quality advisories in parts of Western and Central Canada. These wildfires are a salient example of how fire emissions often extend well beyond local burn areas to a larger geographic region. The health implications of wildfire smoke can range from eye, nose, and throat irritation to aggravating pre-existing cardiovascular and respiratory illnesses. Greenhouse gases released during these wildfires can also carry longer-term implications for the environment, promoting climate change through the warming of the Earth's atmosphere. As the incidence of fires is set to increase over the coming years, so too will the impact of this derived hazard, smoke. A flash flood might not be the event that is immediately associated with wildfires. However, this derived hazard can be just as life-threatening. Each time an area is scarred by a wildfire, there's a dramatic loss in vegetation. This loss means it is more difficult for the ground to absorb precipitation, and the soil becomes loose and unstable during storms with significant rainfall. This consequence of wildfires was seen during the deadly mudslides in the Montecito area of California in January 2018. Torrential downpours on the Thomas Fire burn scar sent torrents of mud and debris into nearby canyons. The natural disaster resulted in widespread destruction and the deaths of 21 people. Mudslides have the potential to cut off areas from essential services, including electricity, potable water, natural gas, and sewage. Although the threat of flooding and mudslides decreases over time as vegetation begins to regrow, the threat remains heightened for several years after the blaze has been extinguished. The map here illustrates the probability of a debris flow within the Carr Fire burn scar based on drainage basin characteristics, burn severity, and soil properties. The Carr Fire was one of several large-scale wildfires that occurred in Northern California during the 2018 wildfire season. The assessment shows a heightened likelihood of a debris flow in the drainage basins near Lake Whiskeytown during a significant rainfall event. Global fire activity in 2018 proved to be both deadly and destructive, a trend that will likely continue into 2019 and in the years to come. Populations in areas near recent burn scars will need to be cognizant of potential flash flooding and mudslides due to lack of fortifying vegetation. In the long term, rising global temperatures and extended periods of drought could alter fire regimes as dried biomass fuels become more abundant. Factors that might limit the frequency of global wildfires, including urbanization and enhanced tropical rainfall, threaten to produce more violent and destructive blazes due to an increase in vulnerable infrastructure and vegetation growth. Thank you for learning more about the environment topic as covered in the 2019 Global Forecast. Tweet your questions using the hashtag 2019 Global Forecast, and I will respond to your questions relating to wildfires. For more information about the 2019 Global Forecast Report and to download an executive summary and security assessment rating maps, visit the WorldAware website.